No mai, haere mai, piki mai, kakia mai. Kia ora and welcome to 30 with Guyon Espiner. 30 minutes, one guest, no cuts. What we record is what you get. Mike King, he once described himself as an aggressive, politically incorrect, foul-mouthed stand-up comedian. He's gone on to be one of the most high-profile mental health advocates in Aotearoa. In 2019, he was named New Zealander of the Year. In Budget 2024, his charity I Am Hope got $24 million to provide free counselling for 5 to 25-year-olds. There's now something of a political fight about how the money was awarded, but bigger questions arise. Do we have a mental health crisis in New Zealand? And if so, how should we be dealing with it? So let's start the clock. 30 minutes with Mike King. Kia ora, Mike King. Thanks very much for coming in.
Thank you for having me. It's great to be here.
How are you? Travel tends to find you.
A bit weary. You know, I'm starting to feel my 62 years this week. I've been copping a lot of flack, a lot of positive responses, but a lot of flack as well.
We'll get into that and the awarding of funding for I Am Hope. But I thought I'd start with the kaupapa of what you're trying to do. I looked at the charitable purpose of the charity. It says that you aim to, quote, forever change the way New Zealanders think, act and feel about mental health and suicide. How so?
And drive positive societal attitudinal change, and that's the key. Our whole kaupapa is about changing the way people think, act and feel. Why? So I've been speaking in schools for the last 13 years. I've listened to over 250,000 young people, and here's what I know. 40% of kids in school will have a major crisis associated with some type of suicidal thinking before they leave school. Not in their lifetime, before they leave school, which is staggering to a whole lot of people. Guess what? It's normal. We've all had a thought. If you haven't left your house at least once in your life going, what's the point? You're living in a marshmallow. The stat that scares me is 80% of those kids never ask for help. And the reason they never ask for help is because they're worried about what other people will think, say, or do. And what's our message to young people who are travelling that journey? Reach out and ask for help. Excuse me? I've just told you I'm scared of sharks, and your solution is to go swim with sharks and maybe a dolphin will come along. So what needs to change is society's attitude and we need to ask ourselves, we all need to look in the mirror and ask ourselves, what am I doing to make it more comfortable for young people to reach out and ask for help? And the answer to that is we're not doing enough. We're busy telling kids what to do. This is what you need to do. We need to start showing them. We need to start showing vulnerability.
We'll return to that theme of awareness about mental health a little later in the interview, but I just want to start with this new $24 million that you've got. What will this funding allow you to do?
160,000 free counselling sessions is basically what it's going to allow us to do, and it's critical. So since the inception of Gumboot Friday, we have delivered 92,000 sessions at a cost of $13 million. That's about an average of $147 per session. This will allow us to bring more counsellors onto the platform. Currently we've got 555, and we've kept it at 555 because when we had more than that, the money went out too quickly. So this is going to help us expand our reach.
To how many? 300 odd more, something like that?
Yeah, there's about 300 more counsellors. So we've got 350 on the waiting list, counsellors on the waiting list, and you know, we'll gradually introduce them in.
Let's talk a little bit about how this works. As I understand it, the young person can have a look at the practitioners that are available and they choose them themselves, do they? Why is that?
So when we originally started, we started with pen and paper. We had a whole lot of counsellors there and the kids just went along, or their mums and dads went along and chose. Phase 2 of the operation was we did a user testing. We went out to kids and asked them, what do you want to see? So our whole database is user-centric. It's not there for counsellors. It's not there for their mums and dads. It is there for the kids. And what they wanted to do, what they told us is they want to see the counsellors, they want a description of what they do, and they wanted an understanding of some of the diagnoses that they thought they had. For example, if they think they have depression, you hover over the depression button, there's a drop-down menu and explains in simple terms what depression, alcoholism issues, body image issues, what they all look like. And then the onboarding platform filters out the counsellors, so you've got the counsellors, and then you choose.
And you have 2 sessions funded through your scheme. What happens after that?
As you might be aware, so last year we delivered 8,600 sessions at a cost of $31,400, which literally is about 3.5 sessions. So what happens is we send the sessions out in 2 session blocks. Any child that needs more, the counsellor can refer back and get allocated another 2. Why do we do that? When we first started, we were giving out 10 sessions, so people felt comfortable.
But there's a cap, though, isn't there? As I understood it, you could go out to 6 sessions fully funded.
There are some people out there that do 6, some do 8. Most people
fully funded.
Fully funded,
yeah. Because I could see...
We're not turning anyone away. You know, we don't advertise these things, but it clearly states that 2 sessions and counsellors have discretion.
Is 5 too young to be discussing mental health? I mean, I get it with some real trauma.
Really great question.
You know, some trauma or something that's really serious has happened. But for average kid who's 5, 6, even 7, I mean, is it too young?
That's a great question.
What do you think?
So, here's what I can tell you. The number one mental health issue out there that kills more kids than anything else is eating disorders. Now, if you ask any normal person like myself or you, why are there so many? Well, it's the internet, it's the blah, 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 it's, you know, these expectations that I've got to live up to, all of these things. So mainly it's around the internet. And most people think it starts around puberty, around 12, 11, 12. Our data tells us that kids are reaching out for eating difficulties and body image at 5. It quadruples at 8, it explodes at 14, and it peaks at 18. Now, 5-year-olds don't wake up and go, oh, I've got an eating disorder, I don't like the way I look. So it starts around 3. Now, this takes it away from being a social media issue and makes it an environment issue. Now, you think about this. Some of the things good parents say to their kids, Guyon, put the cakes down, darling. You've already had 1 cake today. You don't want to look like mummy. Or dickhead dad. Oh, look at that fat cow. What the hell was she thinking? Now, one's being a dick and a dad. The other one's being kind and loving. What's the message the child is getting? If I look like that, you will reject me. The number one reason kids are going to see a counsellor at under 10 years old, at under 10, is specifically the connection between themselves and mum and dad. What is happening up here? And you've never heard this data before. In lower socioeconomic South Auckland, where we are right now, we've got a counsellors in schools program with 5 schools in South Auckland. Now we've got gangs, we've got drugs, we've got poverty, we've got violence, we've got drugs and alcohol, right? The number one reason kids in South Auckland schools are going to counsellor is the interaction between mum and dad. What happens to me if they split up? They're more terrified of being put in a house in Remuera than they are of staying here, which tells you one thing: our kids can live with anything as long as they are together as a family. And again, you've never seen this data. There's been no study on this. Why? Because there's no funding. All of our funding in this country is aimed at money, not the needs of our children. And we can back this up with data.
Okay, we'll return to some of these things because there are some interesting points there. I want to talk a little bit about the process by which you got the money, and we know there's some controversy and some political fighting over that. So let's talk a little bit about that.
Sure.
You had your chair of I Am Hope, Naomi Ballantyne. She donated, what, $27,000 to National. You had a just departed CEO who went for the National Party candidacy in Botany in 2019.
Oh, don't forget the impact report by Bill English.
Yeah. We'll come to that.
Yeah.
But I guess the point is this all just a bit too cosy? A bit too cosy with one side of the political aisle? That's the criticism.
Yeah, I know, and I can respond to that easily. On April the 27th, I finished a triathlon where we for raising awareness around mental health. We met on the steps of Parliament. Chris Hipkins was apparently in Lower Hutt. He was actually digging a tree in Parliament grounds and completely ignored us. But the Prime Minister came out, Christopher Luxon, and he announced that he was going to fund Gumboot Friday. I stood there, it was live on camera, and I said, you'll never get across the line. There are protocols to follow. And he said, if I get in, I will make sure Gumboot Friday is funded. How we got that is none of my business. Now, remembering in 2021, the Prime Minister, Jacinda Ardern, she used the same protocol. She bypassed the same protocol to give us $600,000.
Yeah, it wasn't $6 million a year, though.
That doesn't matter.
Well,
now we're semantics, right? Now we're dealing in
it's
semantics.
10 times the amount.
We are dealing in semantics now.
Well, we're dealing with facts. The fact is that you got 10 times as much.
The fact is, she gave us the money. She bypassed, it doesn't matter. $600,000 is a lot of money, particularly to us. And it was given to us to do whatever we like except give it to councillors. Isn't that weird? We weren't allowed to give the money to councillors.
Okay.
So what I'm saying...
your point is that both sides have given you money.
So all of this was done way before Naomi Ballantyne came on board. Our social impact report was done in 2021, just after Labor had won by a landslide, with no chance of anyone else getting in. So there is no...
So New Zealand First, in their deal with National, they said they'd fund you. They didn't say how much. Do you know how that bit came about?
No, you'll have to ask Winston.
What's your relationship with New Zealand First or Winston Peters or Shane Jones or those guys?
I have the same... Well, Shane, I've got issues with him. Anyone who uses 5-syllable words to ask a 1-syllable question just to show everyone how intellectual he is a dick as far as I'm concerned. I love him, though. I love him. But you know what I'm saying? Yeah. So I have the same... I have a relationship with Chris Hipkins. Yep. I have a relationship with Willie Jackson. I have relationships with Mitchell, the policeman. I have relationships, cross-party relationships with everyone.
Okay.
I have never met a politician I haven't liked, and I've never met a bureaucrat that I have.
Okay. Before I leave that, though, do you feel that you have been forced to take sides, and you're seen now as, you know, the centre-right, you've been funded by the centre-right, and you've had a scrap with the centre-left?
Well, the same thing could be said when I stood in front with Jacinda when she announced $1.9 billion. And I said, this current government has done more in 5 minutes than the last government did in 6 years. I will fight to get kids the help they need. I'm wearing a mullet right now. Do you think a 62-year-old man wants to walk around in a mullet? No, I'm trying to raise $50,000 for our kids. I will wear a dress for a month if that means I can get $50,000 for our kids. I am not here to support political parties. I've never donated. I'm here for the kids.
Let's figure out how you did get to be sitting here today.
Yeah.
Firstly, what would the Mike King of, say, 15 years old got from I Am Hope?
Nothing.
If that program was available to you?
No, I wouldn't use it. I mean, like, I'm old school. You know, I'm like most kids today. Only broken people go and see a counsellor. You know, and you know, I was a boy.
Were you a broken kid?
Yeah, very, very. I had major self-esteem issues and rejection issues.
Is that where this comes from, your aggression?
Yeah, I had. Well, so there are two types of people in the world when it comes to rejection, right? There are type A's and type B's. Type A's make everything about themselves. You can almost hear them thinking, why don't people like me? It's not fair. I'm a good person. And then there are type B personalities. You don't like me? Go on, fuck you. I hate you more. These are two. So the irony is, these two people are exactly the same people. They both want love and connection. The only difference between them is how they deal with the rejection. And we're so busy focusing on the behaviour and not focusing on what drives. So I was that kid. I was that kid who was shit scared of being rejected. I was a guy that was trying to impress my dad my whole life. I wanted my dad to pat me on the head, and my little voice in my head constantly told me I wasn't good enough.
Is that what got you into comedy, this idea that if people laugh, they love you?
Well, yeah, that's exactly it. The first time I told a joke, everyone laughed, and I took the laughter as a sign of people liking me. So that was day one of my comedy career at 8. It was day one at 8, and it was day one of my downfall, because that was the day that I got my self-esteem from the approval of other people.
You don't regret your comedy career, though, do you?
Never.
You were the best paid comedian in New Zealand. You were pretty much top of the
my whole
tree.
life, I thought that was going to be the answer to my dreams. Imagine that. For every kid out there, who has no confidence, I wanted to be famous. Why? Because famous people are loved by everyone, and famous people have money. Money is not everything, but money is choice. And when I imagined that I ever got famous, I thought these imaginary golden gates would open. There'd be a ticker tape parade like the America's Cup. I'd be under, and people would be chanting my name. When those metaphorical gates opened, there was my big head going, you're still a fucking loser and you're never going to make it.
Is that how you still thought of yourself, even at the height of your fame?
At the height of my fame. And that's when the drugs and the alcohol really took off. Now, people associate drugs and alcohol with mental health issues. They see it's a problem. They shouldn't be in the Mental Health Act. Drugs and alcohol are a problem for normal people. For me, they were a solution to my problem. They shut up my inner critic.
Was that what it was? Did it start as fun and then transfer into something else, or was it always a hiding mechanism for you?
It was always, it allowed me to be the person that I wanted to be. I could say what I wanted to say, and if I made a dick of myself, I could say, oh yeah, but I was drunk. I wanted to be the person that I was, and I was a kind drunk. I was a good, kind drug addict. I didn't turn bad at any stage at all. I was open and I was embracing, but it allowed me to make mistakes. But most importantly, it shut up the little voice in my head now.
Are you good with that now?
Well, it made me who I am. I always thought that if I got to be a world famous comedian, then that was everything. Little did I know that was going to be the groundwork that I needed to do the work that I'm doing now.
Have you kicked the drugs and alcohol then?
Oh, 17 years.
Yeah.
April 1st, 2007 was the last day I picked up. I gave up drugs, alcohol and cigarettes, and I have absolutely no regrets. I'm living my best life.
In your comedy, you described the routine recently as misogynist, homophobic construction site humour.
Worse than that even. Worse than that. And do you know what changed me? The first time I spoke in a school, I spoke in a Northland school after, I think, 19 young people took their own lives in 2012. And the principal was listening to my radio show, The Nutters Club, as he was driving back to school. And he asked me to go up. And after the talk, I talked about my inner critic, but after the talk, I met 5 young people who were having suicidal thoughts. And I went round to each of them in the room. And the first kid said, I said, so what's up with you? And he went, da-da-da, da-da-da, da-da-da. And I was like, holy heck, that is unbelievable. Congratulations on getting this far because you're special. And then I said, did you talk to your parents? He went, no. Why not? Because every time I talk to them on my problems, they make it about them and they make me feel worse. I said, give me an example. Every example he gave me, I saw myself. Then the next young man is a young Māori boy, good-looking kid, and I said, what about you? He goes, first off, I'm gay. And I go, well, that must be tough, me making an assumption. Growing up in gang Northland, staunch Northland, and you're gay, that must be really tough. And he went, I'm sweet with being gay. And I'm going, okay, so what's the problem? He goes, every time I hear the word faggot, homo, gay boy, poofta, even from my friends who love me, I think this is how the world sees me, and what's the point?
And you were telling jokes about that.
And that's what I said. At the time, not only was I telling jokes, I was saying them on radio, television, on stage, and actively encouraging everyone else to say those words as a joke. And it was the first time that I realised my words killed. And I vowed from that day I was going to change. There was no way I was going to go back and do that anymore.
Let's talk about suicide. I mean, things were rough for you as a kid, sure. And, they're tough for kids now. Suicide's the sharpest end of this debate, right? Mm-hmm. Is what we are doing now working in that space?
No.
Because we're quite restricted in what we can talk about with suicide, aren't we? I mean, is this a secrets keep you sick sort of story?
Yeah, we do need to talk about, we must never talk about means ever. But we need to talk about the whys. We need young people in particular to understand why someone feels this way.
Do you do that when you go to schools?
Well, not so much. I focus on the inner critic. So the base of all mental health problems, particularly with young people, is the little negative conversations we have with ourselves every day. Imagine you're a child today. Imagine that. and you're living in a world of perfection. Every adult that's in front of you is constantly telling you about their success stories and what they do. They never. So we're brought up to protect, provide, give our kids a better opportunity, and never show fear. Not weakness, never show fear. Fear creates anxiety. So we're putting on our perfect mask. Your kid comes home from school, tells you about 5 things that happened today, 4 amazing, 1's bad. What do you mean you failed that maths test, Guyon? I told you on Thursday you had to study that maths test. Your mother and I had nothing when we were your age. We lived in a cardboard box. Do you think money was... So our kids are constantly feeling like they are not good enough. And their little inner critics going, it's just me. It's just me. Now, if parents were aware that their behaviour was having this effect on their kids, they would change. So with the kids, I normalise that. No one has got their shit together. And with parents, I help them to understand what they think is good for their children is actually killing them.
The suicide numbers haven't been really going up. They've been pretty steady, haven't they?
They're rot. Anyone who believes those numbers are real.
Well, hang on. Let's
living in la la land.
Let's just start with the official statistics, and then you can have your go about why that we shouldn't believe them. But you know, I'm looking at figures from the coroner's office and from the Ministry of Health, Whatuora. They're saying that we're around 10.5 per 100,000 people.
Yeah,
now
rubbish.
it's 565 souls. You know, and
No,
that's a harrowing amount of numbers.
It's more than that. It's more than that. No, you've got to remember.
How would you possibly know that?
Well, they don't count drownings. They don't count anyone with blood, with alcohol and drugs in their system. The threshold for what is a auto-suicide, the threshold is so high. So the coroner's got to be around 99% certain that this person took their life.
But that's a good thing, isn't it? We need to be certain before we put facts forward.
So someone who takes their own lives and leaves a note, they are, in a lot of cases, they're not counted. They are not counted, even though they have clearly stated their intention.
Why not?
They are not
Why
counted
not in that scenario?
Because the coroner feels that there is a little bit of doubt. Maybe it was a game they were playing. Maybe they had too much drugs and too much alcohol. Now, you'll notice that the numbers plummeted a couple of years ago.
They did. They went down 20%.
Yeah, and you know what the age group that they went down in?
Between 1996 and 2016.
What was it? Even later they've come down.
They
right?
have come down a little. They're hovering around 10.5 per 100,000 people.
Yeah, but if you notice that white people over 55, they've come down. So they're not taking into... Two things they're not taking into account. They're not taking into account assisted dying, which technically is a suicide. Someone who... It's a suicide.
Well, there's a separate act of Parliament which allows you to do that.
So Parliament decides what a suicide is.
You have to have a 6-month to live diagnosis to get euthanasia.
Doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Suicide, the dictionary description of suicide is taking...
What do you roughly think that they are...
I know for a fact right now, they're in the last... 3 weeks, there's been 6 people take their own life in Taranaki. You haven't heard about that anywhere else. I just got that statistic from the iwi today. 6. They're not listed. Now, here's the other thing. Those numbers are solid. So there are still ongoing inquiries into deaths of young people. And when they are ruled, they are never added to those numbers ever. So I don't believe any of those numbers. I don't believe them.
Okay. Strangely, we have this sort of system or belief that we don't talk too much about suicide because we think that people might copycat.
And we shouldn't.
But now we have this huge awareness about mental health.
Yeah.
And you're a big part of it in Aotearoa.
Yeah.
Some experts think that we're overdoing it and over-diagnosing or over-medicating issues that may be part of the ups and downs of being alive. You do agree with that? That surprises me.
I agree we're over-medicating. Okay. I agree.
We've got 2 things going on here, so let's have a quick crack at them because we've only got 7 minutes to go because we are what we said.
Yeah, cool. 30 minutes, that's all we got.
That's right. So are we over-diagnosing?
No, I think we're more aware. I think we are more aware and more people are coming forward.
Let's circle back to the first few minutes of this interview, and I tucked it away in my brain. You said that you'd hover over the thing of the kid was, have I got depression? Now, I don't know, doesn't that sort of hyper-awareness of these things, I can Dr. Google quite a number of conditions and say, I think that's me. Do you think there's a scenario where if we make everyone hyper aware of this, that to some degree we might have people overdiagnosing?
Well, I think the two parts go into one.
Yeah.
You know, so yes, people are more aware, but the problem we've got is the people who are running mental health services are using the medicated waiting room. They're being overwhelmed by people, so they're throwing them on medication. Now, so we are constantly accused of being the ambulance at the bottom of the cliff. Counselling is the ambulance through the public service lens. That is absolutely correct, because the only way you can get free counselling is go to the doctor, be diagnosed mentally ill, then go on an excruciatingly long waiting list before seeing a burnt out counsellor, right? Our thing is, we are an early intervention service. So by making young people aware that they can talk about a little emotional problem before it becomes a big problem, before it becomes a suicidal thought. So we're fixing problems before they get out of control.
I'd like to get your response to this. There was a recent piece in the New York Times where it said that researchers say that mental health awareness campaigns help some, but for others have a negative effect. And they said that it can lead them to over-interpret their systems and see themselves as in more trouble than they actually are. They've got a name for this called prevalence inflation.
Yeah, of course. They made that name up, of
you can
course.
understand what they're getting at there, though.
But I can cite you a study that says if we don't do anything, it kills a lot of people too. So researchers can always find angles. They can always find angles. But the fact of the matter is, after talking to over 250,000 young people, what they have been saying to us constantly is we would like to talk about our little problems, but not talk to our parents about them, someone neutral. So we are trying to change counselling from being seen as a mental health intervention to it's just a conversation.
Just quickly to pick you up on that, because it was in my back of my mind before too. They don't want to talk to their parents about it.
Yeah.
Does this in any way get in the way of that child-parent relationship? Because you've got this thing, right?
That's another great question, Guyon.
They've gone, I want this counsellor. She looks really cool, and I've got to talk to her.
You something.
And then they don't, because the counsellors don't tell the parents what they talked about in the session, do they?
Let me tell you something. So remember how I said that the reason kids don't talk to counsellors is because they're worried about what people think, they're worried about what people say, and they're worried about what people do. And the number one reason kids don't talk to their parents isn't because their parents are dickhead, they don't understand me. I don't talk to my parents because I don't want to hurt them. My parents have sacrificed everything for me. And now I can't go and tell them that their reward for doing everything for me is this is how I feel, because they will blame themselves. Now think about that. A kid with mental health issues would rather die than tell you they are thinking about dying. What does that say about our society? And more particularly, what does that say about these kids today? This is the most amazing generation in the history of the world. They are putting their parents' feelings ahead of their own.
Do you shape these programs at all, or does the money just go to the counsellors? Does Mike King come in and say, here's the kaupapa, here are our boundaries? I mean, do you shape the mental health programs at all?
Of course. We've got a clinical team. I've got a research and development team.
Are you qualified to do that?
I'm not, but my research and development team and my clinical director and her team are more than qualified to do that. This is not Mike King going out there and going, bam, bam, bam. And that's what people think because I'm the spokesperson. I get it. But we have got teams in there that tick every box, and everything that we do is evidence-based and evaluated. And I would stand up to anyone that comes in and challenges what we do. I would provide them with everything that they need to show we're covering off everything.
Just a couple of minutes left. How do you feel about your own mental health?
You know, people say that all the time. How do you take care of you? So after the stressful press conference that we had on Tuesday, where everyone was accusing us
This was just after the money was
announced. After the money was there. I went to Mana College. And I gave 2 talks there, one to the Māori kids in the marae who challenged me on accepting money from Winston Peters. They challenged me. They challenged me. Why are you doing this? And I explained to them that if Gollum gave me $24 million, I would have given, and I am not clipping the ticket. My organisation are giving the whole 24 million. And I actively encourage them to continue challenging.
I get that, Mike.
And then I went and spoke to the kids. And you know what? Listening to them, listening to me, and then coming up and talking about their issues, that's how I fill my cup. It is the most, it gives me the purpose, it gives me the drive, and all the dickheads out there that are throwing shit at me, throw it. It doesn't mean anything to me. It's what the kids come and tell me that matters above all else. That's how I fill my cup.
Thank you very much for coming in. Really appreciate your time.
It. Thank you. Great questions.
Thank you, Mike King. That was 30 Minutes with Mike King. This is 30 with me, Guyon Espiner. We'll catch you next time.